Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Shedd, and I'm so excited to be the host of LRXD's Take Care Tuesday. At LRXD, we believe in a brighter and bolder future where health and well-being become accessible to all. Our digital talk series, Take Care Tuesday, is focused on giving us all a deeper dive into some of the practices, opinions, and really valuable advice from some of the top thinkers in health and wellness, creativity, futurism, social activism, and environmental activism, all who share our same mission of health and happiness. And this week, I'm so excited to be having a conversation with Adri Norris. Adri knew from an early age that she wanted to be an artist. Through life's changes, moving from Barbados to New York to New Mexico, joining the Marines, art remained the main persistent force. She was raised to be a leader, and she sees herself as someone who can help people improve lives. Thank you so much for being here, Adri. This is a real treat for me and for everyone. I wanted to start with, I first came into contact with you when you were doing an event with the Denver Art Museum. It was a virtual event, and you were talking about your Women Behaving Badly series. And I was so touched by all the people you really mentioned. And it shifted me into researching more on Shirley Chisholm and really investigating that and understanding that. And I'm curious, what has been your intention behind this series, and how does it touch on your own story, and maybe even the way that has it influenced, I'm sure it has, but has it influenced the way that you show up publicly?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Yes, the Women Behaving Badly series, it really stemmed from this idea of artists as creators of culture, reflections of culture, or a combination of the two. And so, up until that point, it was 2016 when I started the series. I'd been painting portraits, for families, and I had a series where I did portraits of celebrities and pictures of my friends and things of that nature. But I started to ask myself, like, am I doing that thing? Am I reflecting culture, or am I helping to change culture? And I didn't feel like that the answer was yes at the time. And so I started the Women Behaving Badly series because I am also a big nerd and I love learning things always. And I listen to tons of podcasts and I watch documentaries, and anything that just sort of puts information in my brain, I'm here for it. And one of the things that had started to happen around that time period when I started making the series was I realized that, through these random obscure stories and podcasts, and I'm talking like random stuff from like Radiolab or 99% Invisible, things that are not specifically about history, I would get these little snippets of some woman in history who had done something that was important to us. And I was like, well, why didn't I know this? 35, 36 years old at the time. And I was like, well, that's weird. And how did I make it this far and not know that it was a woman who created this cooling shipping containers so that we could bring fruits and vegetables from different countries? Like, why didn't I know this? And so the more I asked myself that question after hearing new stories, I was like, you know what? I need to just share these. This is the thing that I can do. And so Women Behaving Badly was born out of that desire to share that information that I've been learning and really bring to, higher level public consciousness, these stories of women. Something that I've recognized over time is that as much as we feel that we are a culture that, writes things down, and we're in the age of information where like everything is at our fingertips with a quick, online search, we're actually still very much beholden to the oral tradition. And so it is the stories that we tell each other aloud and we continue to repeat. Those are the stories that persist. And so, during the course of my research, I've found a number of women who were like Oprah famous, Beyonce famous in their times, and we have no idea who they are right now because we stopped talking about them. As for how it relates to my own life, it really has a lot to do with self-reflection, in the sense of seeing myself reflected, you know. And that's not something that was true in my learning of history in school, wasn't true of much of my learning in history as an adult. Um, and I recognize that, if I had known that a number of these people existed and recognized myself in them, I would perhaps have seen different pathways for myself as a youth than the ones that I did think I had access to. If I had known that there was a Black female astronaut out there, who knows? I might have got more interested in science. Not necessarily, but you can never tell. And so for me, it really was also a matter of representation and telling the stories and showcasing individuals and really painting their faces. And I always paint their faces in color, um, so that we know what these people look like. I find that there's so many books about women in history for little girls, um, and they're all stylized and cartoony, so you don't really have a sense of what these individuals really look like. If you were to have read those books, grown up with those books, and then come across a photo you wouldn't recognize. And so I paint realistically because I want people to be able to recognize these individuals and see what their faces were like.
Definitely. And I feel like with art, you're creating an image. It's kind of relates to what you're saying about storytelling. We remember how someone made us feel, and we remember the environment we were in when we heard something. And when we see art, when we see your beautiful paintings, we're getting that message along with the research that you've done. Because we're feeling it. And then I feel like it imprints more in our being, and then hopefully, yeah, we can pass that to other people. And I know that you go into schools and you teach painting demonstrations, but you also give lecture and talk. And I'm curious, what is your, you've touched on it already, but I'm curious, when you're approaching a younger audience, what is your main focus, your main message? And then how does that perhaps differ from when you're talking to older generations in a different type of context?
With the younger audiences, it's really interesting. Like I started off and I was like, focus on girls. I was like, okay, girls need to know who they can be. And something that I came to realize was that, boys also needed to have different types of role models. So, growing up, like most of my role models, I'm an artist. And so I'm like, all right, well, who are the painters? And they're all white and male, you know? But that's all I had to look up to. So I did. And I realized that, for these young men, like they also need role models who they can identify with. But they don't have to be male role models, because as a woman, I was able to find within these guys, something that I could, that would resonate with me. And so yeah, it's really about showing young women who they can be, but also showing young men that success looks like anything and anybody. Like there's no one way to be successful. There's no one look. And so, to have them now have these women that they look up to me, in my mind, and we'll see if it's true in theirs, but kind of shifts the way they look at women in general. If they have more instances of these women who have done phenomenal things that they benefit from, and have done phenomenal things that they are fascinated by. I did a project with a group of eighth graders where they did research on a woman in history. They had to select, what occupation they had. They had to select, whatever. And there was a lot of the guys in class who were like, I don't know who to pick. I was like, well, what do you like? They're like, I like sports. I'm like, dope. You know how many women are in sports? And so to see these boys find, like women soccer players, women basketball players, women track stars, and to learn their stories and get totally psyched and be like, Miss, did you know that this lady did XYZ? They were so excited. To see that in them, like that felt like I was on the right path.
Maybe we can segue into the last question we asked, because I'm sure you'll have great insight on this. If you were to give us one piece of advice, one action that we can actually do tomorrow to make the world a healthier and happier place, what would you say? What would you offer?
I would say read the stories, listen to the stories, learn the stories, share the stories of people who don't look like you, whose experience are different from your own. Um, you know, in addition to being an artist and interested in like actual history, I'm also fascinated by fiction. And the thing that I love about fiction, especially fiction written in the first person, is that you have this ability to kind of walk in someone else's skin for a little while. And so, again, like most of the fiction that I was reading when I was younger was written by straight white men. Um, but as I've grown older, and especially since doing this project, I've been very intentionally seeking out the stories of others, those whose ideas, images, experiences reflect my own, but also those who are very, very different from me, because it gives me an opportunity to like kind of be them for a little while. And so, if you find yourself reading and sharing the exact same kind of story over and over again, well, break out of that box and see what happens to you and see what kind of things you share and what kind of conversations you get to have as a result.
Are there any like specific podcasts that you really kind of circle around that you want to share with us?
Oh man, I've got a ridiculous list. Um, but I'm gonna whittle it down. The History Chicks, I'm a big fan of their podcast, and they are two women who exclusively talk about women in history. Um, Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History is a great one. Throughline, I discovered that one a few months ago and I'm hooked. And basically, what they do is they look at things in the present day and then they see how far back in history this thing started. And then they draw that line between the two points in time. I'm gonna stop there. Though those are my top three at the moment.
That's great. That's great. So if you're digging on Adri, like we are at LRXD, you can find her at afrotriangledesigns.com. And then she's also on Instagram at the same handle at afrotriangledesigns.
Yeah, actually just
So,
Afro Triangle on Instagram and Facebook. I
okay.
cut the designs off.
Got it. Got it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Adri. It was such a treat to just talk to you and connect and hear all your wisdom for us. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.